Hi, Soul Tribe, and welcome to another amazing episode of Awakening Insider. Tonight, we're very excited to bring you guys a show on telepathy and telethought, and we will get into what telethought is throughout the show. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Phil, for joining us. Excited to have you guys here. I know
Good
it's
to see
hot
you.
where we all are right now. How are you both doing?
I'm great, thank you. Lovely to be here as always. Lovely to be with both of you, and always great to just hang out, talk about things that are very meaningful and important too, So yeah, thank you so much for having me back with you guys.
Yeah, same guys, same soul, same Phil, and always good to talk real things. What I call real things.
It's refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And speaking of real things, we're actually going to build upon a lot of what's talked about in the telepathy tapes. So from I guess we'll call it a starseed point of view, or someone who works around consciousness and trying to understand higher concepts and higher mind and really stretch and tap into these places, especially because I work as a clairvoyant and work doing psychic readings. This is something that a lot of us have spent a lifetime waiting for other people to sort of catch up on the idea that there's telepathy between souls and telepathy between minds. So we're actually going to extend and tap further into and build upon a lot of what's on the internet at the moment with the talks of telepathy tape. So let me explain to you guys what telethought is, and you guys know a bit about it too. So in the Keys of Enoch, which we have here with many, many highlighted points and pages, it talks about telethought, which refers to a form of extrasensory perception and communication. So it really describes more of like a higher state of consciousness. And with this, it allows for a direct transmission and a reception of thoughts, whether it's between beings or transcending the physical boundaries. So this concept's rooted in ancient spiritual traditions and modern theories of quantum entanglement and non-locality. So for me, when I'm working in a session with clients, I'm always in this contact, whether it's working with their guides, working with, a spirit team, or working with higher self, literally channeling in messages from those higher places and realms. And all I can sort of describe is you put yourself into a receptive state and you meet in the middle. So where we've talked about on the show last week with paranormal ghost stories that we talked about, a medium would have to tune into the ghost frequencies or into that radio station. So for me, when I'm working with telethought or I'm working with channeling, I'm tuning my energy to a higher state or higher wavelength or frequency, but it's one where my body feels and my mind and heart and soul feel more naturally aligned. And so there's that direct pathway or communication that flows. It does feel a lot more easy compared to the human 3D experience, which I'll be going into a little bit more on the show on Mason Jupiter on the Galactic show on the weekend. We're going to be talking about things that also came up in hypnosis. So that's a little bit of an idea to give you a depth when we talk about it from the book tonight. What's your sort of understanding of telepathy, guys?
Well, like I said in the previous conversation, there's a sender and a receiver potentially, or there's someone who's broadcasting consciously or unconsciously some kind of information, and that's being collected or picked up on and translated either consciously or unconsciously by someone. Like you can take a radio anywhere and tune it in, and there's a broadcasted signal. Well, we can't see it. It's not something, that's visible so much. Maybe it is for people with certain levels of clairvoyance, but, when it comes to, I have a feeling that as this conversation becomes a little bit more mainstream, because when we're seeing people like, say, the Kai Dickens interview on the telepathy tapes on Joe Rogan, what this does is that, it's being talked about in a kind of mainstream way. It acts as a sort of a permission slip for it to be okay to be a topic of conversation. It seeds it into the public's collective understanding. And then, of course, people's unconscious behaviors and attitudes towards the topic will soften a bit if they have a resistance to it. And in some cases, like we've said, like there's probably a lot of kids out there who would have been telepathic but because of this, that, and the other things, schooling or some kind of intervention or something like that, that capacity has decayed or atrophied. And so with the parents being the ones who sort of like are being the main transmitters for the formative years of the child, impregnating them with it's probably not the best word, maybe like loading them with sort of understandings, that will change. And like I said, unconscious things are being projected at the kids, or the kids are picking up on them. And so this changes the overall paradigm. And so this is why, here we are on social media talking about these things, because it's actually helping seed the actuality of it, and also the okayness for this thing to exist as well. And so it's actually helping to propagate it. But yeah, I mean, social proof is something that's a valuable commodity when it comes to these kinds of things, because it sort of helps strengthen the argument for its existence, because there's a growing pool of data. And Kai Dickens is obviously she's trained and university trained and been in the establishment. I don't think they're too friendly towards her now, but she's trying to bring a level of rigor and robustness to her sort of methodology that she brings from that world, to kind of help bring some balanced and rational kind of delivery ability to it, so that it's more easily received. Because some people are just hardwired through their educational process to just flat out reject this. How could that possibly be? Someone would have sent me a memo about it. Somebody would have told me.
Would have been on the news.
It would have been on the news. That's right. And so, yeah, I think this is really interesting, because it's a topic we can flesh out quite a bit. And I mean, if we're just talking person to person, that's one layer of the onion. This topic goes far deeper, and it transcends cultural context, because you can have telepathic conversations with people. It's just like if I held up an apple to a guy who doesn't speak the same language as me, we both know it's an apple, and then I bite it, and he knows exactly what that means. Or if I go like this or whatever, there's a conveyance of understanding that transcends the need for words. And this topic kind of highlights that, and I'll talk about this a bit later, but language does have its limitations.
Yeah, that's well put together, your sentence or your statement. Thank you. And how about you, Greg? Is there anything you want to build upon from what we spoke of last time?
Yeah, I mean, it is a vast theme, isn't it? It is a vast theme, the whole telepathy thing, because more and more, I used to play with this, I probably mentioned this online before, but anyway, I had a friend, an ex-muso, and Phil, musos, they're often a bit dopey, just a lot of musicians, they drink a lot, and it's just kind of like, oh yeah. So I would experiment with her. This was years ago, because I had a theory that people's thoughts aren't their own. And I totally hold to that theory. They're thoughts, and we have them, but they're not actually our thoughts. So like an aerial kind of thing. Anyway, what I do is I bring up certain subjects. Remember at that time it was actually flu vaccines. This was years ago, because I knew she was very, very, I wanted her kids to have all the flu vaccines, and I was saying, look, I don't really need them. Whenever I brought that theme up, I would watch her eyes change, and she became very lucid and very kind of very, very verbal for someone who was kind of not really. And I would watch this frequency, like I literally watched this current of energy. And we think of current affairs, certain news headlines. I'd watch it pass through her, then it was gone. And then she was back to herself as though she'd forgotten. So I deliberately press her buttons, and I go, oh, really? You think? And I would play with this with people, and I realized it's not them. So, and I guess all three of us, and anyone probably watching this, interested in meditation and the notion for me, and meditation plays into this like, what are we? Who are we? Am I my thoughts? And just to unencumber the thoughts, when one kind of releases the thoughts in a way that is, as you say, like connecting to, because I'm thinking of Reiki and the meditation practices we do, and it's often involving a sense of, I guess you could say, protection or empowerment, while at the same time connecting to something. And because we're in an archetypal realm, something above us, because we are in an archetypal realm. So, and it's that feeling of connecting to something greater than just yourself as the mortal individual. So I think more and more, releasing thought, any meditations that, I guess all meditations aim at doing that, but it's actually not difficult to do, to just move into the body and realize that the body and its greater bodies has this areole, and realizing that the thoughts, I know when I give Reiki to people, I literally at the very beginning, I'm often just sort of stroking the thoughts away, and they're kind of a bit surprised that their mind goes all gaga. And I tell them, well, actually, they're not your thoughts to begin with. So when we do that and kind of empty ourselves in a healthy and empowering way, then we open ourselves up to these higher channels of frequency. And it's a very natural thing. Like for us, it is real, it's normal, it's life, And then things can all of a sudden spark into gear when you get all of a sudden realizations. It's like, I guess because of what we do, but like when I have a client coming in, I kind of know, I know what their theme is before they walked in the door because I've tuned in. And you can just, as I said, because we do this kind of stuff, but you just sort of just sitting in their presence, you know what is blocking them and what is hindering them and what, so it is, it's all part of a great arena, isn't it? I mean, it's a fascinating subject, yeah.
I've noticed that too, what you were saying about, you speak about certain topics and it's almost like there's a different set of eyes that just appears with a little spiel that's coming through. It's very fascinating to watch. So I've got a little bit from here. So page 101 from the Keys of Enoch, and it says, when you use Egyptian, Hebrew, Sanskrit, Tibetan, Chinese words to prime the thought vibration to flow into your third eye area, the languages will open channels of crystalline vibration within you so that your body can work directly with this higher intelligence, telethought communication. So these crystalline channels can then be seen as a 3-jewel forming a pyramid. So we also have the crystals within the pineal and the ears, remember, as well. And these 3 crystals in your third eye area allow resonance, attunement to flow between the third eye and the spiritual template over your crown chakra, which is necessary to project and receive the higher telethought vibrations. Remembering that the third eye also works with transmutation, and also it's sort of like a dual pathway for sending and receiving. So with this, it says to, so it receives the higher thought vibrations of light. Thus, the 3 pyramidal coordinates of crystalline emanation out connect with the 5 spiritual languages flowing into you to form vibrationary field that activates the 8th chakra. So that's that beautiful one that sits above the crown. And with this light, with shineth, with giveth the light, is through him who enlightens your eyes, which in the same light which quicken the understandings, the thought forms that are active with this evolution come only through the greater mind. For thought form do not originate in the mind body or man, but only are received and stored in units of 10 to the 10th to the thought power potential. So the body geometry was created to carry these seed crystals and to let the seed crystals flow. And that's something that came up in a hypnotherapy session that I had just last week, was seed crystals. So to come across this synchronistically is amazing, to kind of get an understanding of how things work. So through the third eye, to serve the infinite creation, these 5 languages of enlightenment seated within man to give rise to unity of the 3 jewels in the third eye. So the synthesis of the 3 jeweled bodies of light is the living experience of the light continuum. It allows freedom from linear thought forms and creates more thought forms and creates movement through pluralistic universes, working with multiple bodies of light. So we've talked about that on many other shows that we've done too, that we're not just in this linear 3D conceptual flat 3D universe, that we do have all of these other multiples that we're living in, tapping into at the same time. So reading this little bit reminds me a little bit about the book that you're working on at the moment, Greg, where you talk about the capital M mind. Did you want to maybe share a little bit on that? Because I think that it sort of sums it up, what's being said in here as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And that's, we're talking about, I think Phil was mentioning writing last week, how that creative thing. You sort of tap into something else. So what I've got this book I'm writing at the moment, like a fiction book, like a spiritual adventure with a lot of astral stuff, and it's fascinating the characters that come out. And one thing that the main theme is that there are certain people accepted by the mind. So the mind is a capital M. This is in the book, and they're able to kind of, or there's kind of a stream of telepathy going on. Those who can connect with the mind, and then they download that person's thing from the mind. So it's like this notion of, that you're ready and that you have this authentic self that is then able to access the mind, and then the mind also accesses you. In the book, the mind is kind of like from an alien derivation, but where we all come from. So it's this it's interesting anyway. But I play around a lot with that in the book, and it just seems so real and so logical and so instinctive that this is a process that I think we're moving into, so that and you can also close yourself off from the mind if you wish to be private with certain things. And in the book, the main character is actually named after Gulliver from Gulliver's Travels. Gulliver James, his name is. So Gulliver, in the book, he learns how to put like a shield around himself if he wishes. So it's interesting because he has some embarrassing situations. It's kind of funny actually, but it's good fun. I just feel that there's sometimes in the creative process, I feel, and as a writer myself too, like when you move into these things, you're tapping into something. You're actually having telethought within the process of, you're channeling the book. As you know, Phil, yourself with writing, you kind of channel it, don't you? Channel. It's amazing what comes out of you. You're channeling it. So, yeah, it's just it's, as I said to you guys earlier too, it's something I don't really think about outside of the book. But when I'm in the book, I know exactly how it works. It's so weird. Yeah. In a nutshell.
And how about you, Phil? Was there something you wanted to mention around the telethought side of things?
Well, I've got this much awareness of the Hertak material. I haven't read Keys of Enoch. I've watched some interviews, and I know some people that have worked with JJ and Desiree. I've even a friend of mine who used to actually teach my uncle ballet back in the 50s actually had the Hertak stay with her. She's a Melchizedek teacher, and so yeah, there's a sort of a loose connection there. But I haven't had a good explore of the Keys of Enoch, and I know it's quite a dense book. But from a Hermetic point of view, which is sort of where I find I ground myself in, because I can help make sense from the ground up. Like Greg was saying about writing. So you could say that the language set that we have available to us, our full vocabulary, our ability to structure and pattern information through natural expression, whether it's through writing or typing or speaking or singing, these kinds of things, that is, you could say, in a sense, that is where light is coming through, and then it's being transmitted into the physical world through our capability and expression pathways. So, a singer will be bringing light through, and there's an ability to connect with, we talk about things like quality and quantity. So there's the amount of the stuff you can bring through. So like Tai Chi and Qigong and Kiko, like the Reiki Qigong, essentially that's for building up the white tissue of the body. The bigger the pipes, the more juice. And then, then we have things like precepts and meditative exercises, which help to refine the quality. And that's more to do with the flavor of it. And so when we're pulling light down, it's shining through and it's being expressed in the physical world. Now, how high is your connection to light? Well, in Hermetics, we talk about this thing, and it's also in Buddhism as well, which is this idea of non-dual light. Now, the initial experience of light will be this dualistic type of light, which is what some might call like the astral light, or this is where you hear it's the false light or whatever it is. Look, it's light. Everything's made of light. And I remember seeing a show where I think it was a David Wilcock presentation, where he presented somebody had a couple of scientists in a Slavic country, I think it was, had actually photographed a photon. And when you looked at it on the side, it was actually a side shot of a star tetrahedron or a Merkaba. And, but like I said, our ability to sort of go further and further and further and further up to these really refined levels where the frequency is getting, where there's not a lot happening. One of the reasons we're here is that the growth rate here on the Earth is, you've got a lot more potential for growth. You can get 100 years here or 1 year worth of growth up there, sort of thing. It's relative. That's why we have a dense experience. But anyway, I'm getting off the topic. But as far as being able to tap into other things to get different flavors of light or information packets, this is pretty common ground in the world of magic, in that connecting with beings and realms where there may be. I mean, there's some things that they talk about the known, the unknown, and the unknowable. I mean, look, I mean, what else is going on? The universe is a big place, and there's many layers to the onion, like I say, and our ability to tap into those is probably largely going to be determined by our own sort of state of development in some way or another. And but I mean, just hearing you share that information from the book, and talking about the idea of crystals obviously being they naturally have a capacity for storage, but they can also emit and receive energy as well, and information. And then of course you have these piezoelectric effects where you can squeeze it, wrap things around it, and it can force other phenomena to pop out as well. And so we have these crystalline kind of elements within us, and these can be leveraged with understanding. And it's just fun to explore because there's so much to explore.
Yeah, it's a cool adventure.
Yeah.
So with that as well, and what you were talking about, I love it how you talk about from the ground up and bringing it back to our practical reality, and what we can do, or exercises to even stimulate these crystals. We've talked about it before, to do with cerebrospinal flow, and to do with pulling up the pelvic floor muscles, like Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches, like a reverse coffee plunger. This chicken, since I switched on with you guys, has been obsessed. I don't know if you can see. She likes this conversation today on Telepathy and Telethought. Just one of them. There's another one that's coming too. So in page 309, it talks about telepathy. It talks about spiritual masters actually being born in certain anchor points on the earth. And these spiritual masters actually coming in because they can't transmit the certain light or the certain sort of vibration or communication from those higher realms without actually forming a physical body anchor point on the earth. So that's where you see various incarnations like Jesus or, Mary Magdalene. Even it talks about Moses in here as well. It's like they have to come in, anchor on a certain grid point, and transmit that frequency or communication. It's like they're the radio to capture the signals coming in from higher octaves. And I see this in sessions when certain clients have certain connections to other out of our local Andromeda galaxy, or they've come in from higher star wavelengths or universes. A lot of the time they take in or have, various different incarnations, whether it's like Sirius, Pleiades, and then they'll come and drop into Earth having accumulated a wealth of knowledge and vibration from various different places. But a lot of them are still kind of gleaning in from outside our galaxy and into other universes. There's one little section in here too that I felt was really fitting. So this is talking about transmissions from higher dimensions. It's page 207, key 204, and it says, the sons of light project the geometries of creation into our fourth dimensional space in order to code spiritual mankind into the fifth dimension, the next larger membrane of the universe, the revealing of the codes of light extended through telethought communication, which is produced by modulation of gravitational waves. Dan Winter talks a lot about that, and centripetal and centrifugal force and things. So the gravitational waves carry the codings of light intelligences from the larger membrane of the universe. So you, as a believer, can receive modulated gravitational wave factors that are sent from higher evolutionary masters master intelligences of light. This transmission of knowledge contains codes of light that give you realization of God's purpose and the recognition of where we are in relation to the evolving universe. So if we think about channels, if we think about, clairvoyance and people that are receiving messages coming in from these higher planes and dimensions, this is where it's really important to do the work, whether it's, doing your protection or saying, I only choose to communicate which is best for our highest good, or only connecting to beings that love us unconditionally, or information that's for our best and highest good. And that's where it's really important to have that, because there is a lot of people that are communicating from lower astral entities and things. So I guess the knowledge or the fruit of what comes from it is how we can sort of best navigate, but yeah, always working with protection. So I just thought that was really an interesting little segment that fully describes how a lot of us work. Did you guys have anything else you want to add on sort of, I guess, streaming in messages or intelligence from that higher light that comes in?
Well, I mean, it is interesting, isn't it? Having the mortal playground here, and then having that. And I think a lot of us feel, a lot of people on the spiritual path can feel overwhelmed by the density of duality. So I think, as you're saying, you've got to kind of do the work and enjoy the work. I mean, the word work is a funny one, or the discipline. I actually like the word discipline. Because you want to feel well. And I think if you're an empathetic person, I remember years ago, I remember sitting on buses and trains living in Europe, and I was always picking up people's stories next to me, and it was it really got a bit too much. And I remember then, that was before I'd heard the notion of protection. That was one of the reasons I got into Reiki as well, because there was some kind of system involved. And I think a system is good for people to latch onto. Or just an aside, I remember once I was in Finland about 12 years ago, and Scandinavia has a great connection to certain aliens, certain non-humans. And I was in this hotel, and as I came to, I was wanting to connect with. I just felt there was a presence that was a non-human presence, that was a high vibrational one. Anyway, so I woke up. It was really weird. I woke up saying a mantra as I came to, and I was actually speaking to them, and I was saying, yes, there are many of us, but we mean well. I don't know, it was really weird. It was like, yes, humans appear to be violent, but we're actually, so this particular energy was sourcing from me just what kind of threat humans were. It was very, very strong feeling, and it was a very, very real race of beings. And so I woke up, and I was saying this thing over and over about humans, basically, that, we're okay. We're actually okay. We appear that like a dog. There's a lot, like a lot of bark. I can't remember the words exactly. I think I wrote down somewhere, but like a dog that has a lot of bark, but there's what that's saying about a dog. They're all bark. And it was really cool playing with that in the best sense. And it made me think of this thing that I'm talking about in my book, The Mind. It's like the mind doesn't really allow deceptive thought. So it's like, and there's also, you can have it was like a full-bodied, almost like a tantric, energetic relationship with someone, like someone who else is in the mind. You can interface with them on a different way, where you totally kind of absorb their story. You have this, all the boundaries are down. It's like, well, I know I'm going off at an interface here, but some of the beings I met in the astral that looked a bit like us, or humans, and who I very much identify with, and who, I remember the last time I visited them, I was actually clawing at the furniture not to come back to Earth. That was the thing I was going through. I was told it's okay, I'll be back soon. They seem to have no emotional bodies, or their auras are very, very clear. I guess that's probably what inspired me subconsciously to use that kind of mind thing. So when you looked at them, they were very present, like a lot of beings in the astral, but they looked human, but they didn't have these layers of kind of traumatized aura, to put it simplistically, that humans tend to have. It's kind of flickering in their aura, probably emotional bodies. They didn't have emotional bodies. So that's got me into thinking that maybe our whole evolutionary thing is to lose these emotional bodies. Going into tangent here, but it was really interesting. Just interfacing with these particular beings. I just remembered that then in this hotel. It was like I woke up midstream. It was like they were pulling from me, just how just how volatile are human beings on Earth at this particular time. It was pretty cool. I was saying, yeah, come in, we're okay. I was saying we're okay. I was defending us.
Good job. I love hearing your stories and experiences, and I know the audience does too. And thank you guys for your comments and your likes and shares and subscribes. We really, really appreciate that.
We do.
I just want to pop up Greg's, let me just put this up on the screen. So for those of you wanting to reach out and start to have your own experiences, Greg does teach about astral travel and also has his course and his book. And you can also book one-on-one private sessions with him too. And if you're also wanting to expand your clairvoyant gifts, I have the How to Read Auras course. So this is a really good, opener to start to see things clairvoyantly and start to pick up and extend your sense of vision and sight, and receiving through this third eye that we were talking about before with Telethought too. So there's a lot of bonuses in there. And we also have Phil's Substack, which you've been so busy writing on, and you also have your sessions available too, where I know you do various different activations and things.
I tell you what, can you refresh the screen? Because I've actually just updated it, so it may actually be a bit of a surprise for people.
Oh, there we go. Look.
Oh, I like it.
Playing around with it a bit. Yeah.
That's cool.
Like it's very cool. Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
And how about you? Do you want to share like any of your sort of, supernatural experiences or anything sort of similar to like what Greg's talking about, that it's bringing up memories or bringing up something for you to share?
Yeah, when I go and spend a good amount of time in nature, and I sort of latch on, I guess, to the naturalness of nature, for lack of a better term, right? It opens up a lot of things. I have a very busy mind, and meditation is just, it's as important to me as brushing my teeth and everything else. I have a practice that I do every day, and it's quite involved, but it's very satisfying. It's not just for relaxing; it's for developing capabilities. But I think one thing that really stands out for me is that because I have a desire to really connect with the underlying primordial natural forces, if you will, in the systems that I practice, for example, we obviously have the vital energy, the Reiki, the life force energy, which is one layer. And then in Hermetics, we have the elements, which at each layer of reality sort of form, they express themselves in different ways. But then there's also these things that we refer to as the Kabbalistic letters, or what can also be called letter magic. And when you connect with these, they have there's a visual component, there is a felt or a sensation component, then there is a sound component. And we refer to, there's a ball above the head that acts as a kind of a portal to the Akasha, where we pull things through. So probably similar sort of language as the eighth chakra. But spending time out there.
I'm just going to pop this up.
Oh,
this
cool.
is, I guess, the Keys V-Knot version, similar to what you're talking about too. It's more
Cool.
like a experimental type thing. But I think it's the same sort of thing. It's this activation and cosmic fire with bringing in, information from the Akasha. And you could see there was I don't know if you saw that little bit, the person with all of the senses and the flame and things activated. Yeah, but it sounds like, I guess, a translation from another language, maybe, of what you're talking about, Phil.
Yeah, exactly right. So what we find is that across the various traditions, we have a lot of common denominators. including, a lot of the traditions use an elemental system of some form. They talk about a type of programmable or nutritional based substance, often referred to as the chi or the life force, that expresses itself differently at each level. As it moves down into the physical, it becomes more sort of tangible, I guess. Hence, we have Tai Chi people moving like they're in a hydraulic fluid in a swimming pool. But as far as personal experiences go, I found that if I want to have, protection is crucial. We do a lot of protection work in Hermetics before we do. You access certain things which set a clear boundary between you and other things, because things can just jump on you. And so, you need to be able to have some pretty strong ways to rinse yourself, especially if you're depending on the path you're on. But heading out to nature, and it's funny, I'll go out and I'll take my cup of tea or my coffee down the back, and I'll be just doing some standing practice, which is I'm activating the whole fascial network of the body. I'm not sitting, I'm standing and putting pressure on it, because when you put the fascia under load, that lights up the life force, and then you tune into that, and you're like, well, but when you've got all the life force around you, all the trees, the animals start wanting to go, what's going on here, But I find that I'll just pick up on things. I'll pick up on what's happening in the neighborhood. I'll be like, I live in a very built up area. There's a lot of stressed out trees here. They're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, trying to help keep things, pumping, so. But the way that the letters, these Kabbalistic letters, express themselves, when you've got a large fuel source like a natural environment with all these large life force emanating beings like big trees, that creates a highly conducive environment for having, peak experiences. And mixed in with a little bit of, there's a biomechanical framework that you can work, and then there's the engagement of the three bodies. But anyway, I find that if I want to get an uber hit of creative insight, I will go out into the natural environment, and I will get sounds, I will get information in various ways, and that includes visuals. I have to say the visuals are quite impressive once you tune into the local ambient life force. It stimulates your existing capacities, and then just kind of blows them out a little bit and just cracks them open a bit. And then, it's kind of like a stress adaptation cycle where you get used to that next level of sort of input or higher resolution of information. And then you spend time paying attention to it. Then you can take ownership of it, so that once it's opened up a bit, it may contract again, but it's not going to contract all the way back to where it was. It's going to stay open just that little bit more. And it's a very healthy incremental development process where you just grow a little bit at a time, but every one of them little bits, darn, they're interesting. You're not trying to take the hero dose and get to the top of the staircase in one leap. You're going, oh, is it? Oh, that's interesting. Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. I couldn't have possibly perceived that beforehand. So, as far as the details of an experience go, I know there's little things moving around me. I can totally pick up on that. But clairvoyance for me is something that peaks usually when I'm doing healing sessions. Something I'm working on, and I'm looking forward to having more of a visual experience. But probably like other people, first thing in the morning, when you get up and you come back to bed, do the back to bed thing. That's normally when I will have my sort of probably more astral level stuff. I sort of hang out with all the local sort of like animals that have passed on. There's so many cats and dogs that want to hang out, man. Like, they're fun. But higher beings,
to do that all.
Yeah, man, higher beings. That's a whole nother story. And the interactions have been a mixed bag, to be truthful. And a mixed bag in the quality and the intensity, but they're all valuable. And I'd have to say that probably what's fun for me is when I'm doing sessions with people, and I will sort of pick up on visitors, if you will, and that's always very interesting.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And especially good with the animals too. And I know we've talked about on the other telepathy shows that we've done where, animals have been a big feature. So this is why today we're building upon and more talking about the spiritual aspects. And there is a page 471. It talks about telethought transmission must take place because the preciseness of biological signals in the human body does not allow man to organically become in tune with the many levels of the counterpoint that are necessarily to work within the different biological information systems, which share the same life space as man, but exist on different levels of biological emanation. So hence the preciseness of biological language prohibits the meanderings between the levels and planes, creative consciousness reality, because the biological languages are based on a locked-in information where it does not permit for the creative interface between the different consciousness layers. Thus, telethought communication provides a serial lettering using primal divine letter pictographs, which is sort of similar to what you were saying, like, with working with the symbols, how you're working with the Kabbalistic symbols. So it talks about in here the Hebrew letters of light. And I'm not sure if it was in the How to Know Higher Worlds, the Rudolf Steiner book, he talks about as well that people will see certain levels of clairvoyance will see these like letters in flames, which is something I saw when I was younger too. And you'll have mandalas and things like that appear that are coming from higher dimensions or universal intelligence or consciousness. But essentially it talks about with these pictographs appearing, it allows for our biological reprogramming. So this is between the layers of consciousness. This method of communication provides the capacity for information transfer through these projected geometries of light, which take the ambiguity of the sound vibration language and give language to greater meaning and versatility for diversification of function. Anyway, it goes on and talks about how it even activates things down to like an enzyme level within the body. And this is something with speaking light language since as long as I can remember being on this earth. It is something that's self-activating. So if anyone listening to this feels called to use light language, or to even listen to previous recordings of light language that I've popped up, whether it's on Spotify, YouTube, or other shows that we've done, not only does it help to activate, but it also helps us to tap into our own form of light language. So it talks about in the Bible, and also Rudolf Steiner talks about it too, that there'll be those that will activate others that are born with certain gifts and abilities too. So yeah, I just find it interesting to see all these like little webs and how they interconnect, and have a look at how we can sort of, I guess, show examples of this, or make sense of for our listeners at home to go, oh, I've had this happen. Hold on a minute. Maybe working with this might enhance it, or, tuning in and focusing, working with, Tai Chi, Qigong, the various other practices that we talk about. But yeah, it's just so interesting to find all these little threads, and it's like evidence to back up what it is that we know to be true as well. We've only got around about a little over 10 minutes left. Is there anything that you guys really, I guess, are working on at the moment, or anything you're receiving around different layers and levels of communication going forth now that we're in this age of Aquarius?
Yeah. I'm feeling, look, and as I felt for a long time, I mean, this, as I said with my astral experiences, this phenomenal sense of benevolence, and that's a pretty watered down word from the cosmos. Like, it really is an all-loving cosmos. And from my own astral experiences and entities I've come across, what I've realized is when you can get rid of the perception of certain energies, like I know now from the astral that the notion of evil is actually part of duality. It doesn't actually exist. So when you realize that the universe is by its very nature all loving, all encompassing, and you realize that the limitations that we actually put around ourselves are kind of shadows when we look at the face of light. So then it kind of opens yourself up. So like I feel with communication, you've really got nothing to lose and everything to gain. And I think that just I know we talk about protection, and I do it myself because it's the fluid reality here, but really it's kind of minimal. Just this, if you're beaming out the sovereignness of your being and your entity, you can't go wrong. And I'm a bit of a maverick in that I just fell into this, having loved just meditation for no spiritual purpose, for 15 years or so before I started having an astral experience. So, and I think that just like the sky's the limit with people. I think you only take as much as you can take on. And I just like, here's an interesting one. When I like to go surfing, and often I've been around sharky areas, and I know when they're there, and I'll radiate love from my aura. I have a protocol when I go into the surf anyway, to connect with the spirits of the ocean and all this. And this is just normal. This is what I'm saying. I don't see it as overly protective. I just see it as empowering, because wouldn't I knock on the door and greet anybody as they let me in the door? so the ocean, it's part of me. I'm not being overly defensive. I don't feel I'm being overly defensive, but I can sense when there's a certain energy, and I'll just emit love from my heart. And I have the feeling that, and I know only once was I chased out of the water by a shark with a friend, and it was scary. But I remember at the time feeling, I know it sounds weird, the energy of the shark is an apex creature. This is just an example. If you go out in the water and you're giving off that apex kind of vibe, a shark is going to sense that vibe and will challenge you because it's their domain. So you've got to go out with respect. I know that sounds weird, but I feel that when I do feel a bit, there's something, I'll just release my heart and connect. And, occasionally I put my legs up on the board and I'll paddle in quietly when I've got a feeling. But I just remember the one time that I really did have the nightmare and was chased in and had my legs up, and I ended up surfing straight onto rocks because I just wanted to survive. And there was a shark. The shark that my friend of mine who was a local there, what he noticed was that the shark was challenging. So he found that when he turned toward the shark and gave a little bit of aggression, the shark would back off. So the shark is wanting to know. And if you look at the shark as the parallel for certain energies that are, looking for a bit of argy-bargy, it's just argy-bargy in the end, even in the astral. When you kind of recognize, and you can only probably gain this if you have the experience yourself, but when you know that it's all about love, that's all there is. There is actually, as simplistic and as cliched as it sounds, that's it. And when you can really sense that all about you, like I remember once when I was living in Spain, they're really into abusive animals there, with look, it's just something they do with the bulls and everything. And there was, I might have mentioned this before, but I came out of their local supermarket, and there was all of a sudden a cage of tigers and lions. They plonked it down, some big thing, and they were setting up a circus, but they hadn't put the controlling walls around. So I walk out, and these guys, there was a few lions and a few tigers and a lion in one cage. They couldn't even move. They were just sitting there next to each other. And I was feeling very expanded, and I was having these experiences. So I walked into the cage, put my hand in the cage, I might have mentioned this, and just started patting one of the tigers, right? And I felt confident to do so. Now, one of the circus guys just went ballistic and said, "What the hell?" And they looked at me, these animals, and I just felt, I wouldn't recommend this with anyone, but I just felt it's okay. I just felt it's okay. And I remember the rhino was a beautiful animal. I remember it was such a beautiful feminine energy from this rhino, and just touching its tusk, and it had really teary eyes. I just remember, I felt so sorry for these animals. Going in a tangent here, but what I realized is a lot of these archetypal energies, we perceive them in the physical like alleged negative sharks or rhinos or tigers, lions. We see them as like, and that's the stuff we're fed. We're really fed that. And in a certain situation, perhaps so, if they're hungry and you're doing the wrong thing at the wrong time in the wrong place. But more and more, we all come from that same spark of, that creative ecstatic surge that was scientists call the Big Bang, which is like a kind of celestial pornographic statement, really. But it is all there to serve us, and we've got nothing to lose by connecting. And I'm ranting on here, but I'm just saying people really should be adventurous. And if you're building up your energy body with that sovereign energy, that is your protection. If something goes a bit awry, you'll be able to work it out. So I just feel that you've got everything to gain by connecting and experimenting a bit in the best sense, in what feels right for the individual. That's a rant.
Oh, it's so interesting though. I didn't know that about you with the tigers and the lions, the rhino and the shark. Yeah. Wow. And interesting about like that apex energy too. Really, really interesting.
And as a 10-year-old, like I was bitten by a tiger snake because I never wore shoes. They didn't have shoes. I had to wear school shoes, but at home I never wore shoes, brought up in the country. I landed on a snake from a Tarzan swing with my friends, got bitten, thought, oh, well. A friend of mine was allergic to blood anyway. I did pass out before they got me to hospital, and I was out for like 24 hours. So there was a struggle of, because they got me late to hospital and had to work out which snake. It was a tiger snake. But the thing was, I remember coming out of that, it was an absolutely beautiful experience. And I know it sounds weird. Even it was a mini death, and I remember passing out and they were trying to keep me. But I remember my mum said, that was at 10 years old, my mum said I was a different kid after that. It was quite interesting. So this, like, I'm just thinking of what Phil is saying with the natural world. It's curious to engage with the natural world in a more full-bodied sense, isn't it? Really, and that can appear, as I say, negative, like not good to get bitten by a snake, not good to be unconscious. But I loved it. I loved the experience. I know it sounds weird, shocking for my parents, but I remember coming away feeling, well, that was somehow probably a shamanic experience on a certain level, getting the blood of the venom of the snake. But we're taught these things are bad. These things are bad. Don't do it. It's just the wrong angle. It's just a very simplistic, purely physical angle that the world, and these low energies the fearful energies that are being streamed at us, we can really rise above them when we realize that it's all part of something that is so much more magical and so much more loving. It's what we are,
Yeah. Well, I learned the same thing in college. We did a bit on shamanic animal studies. But yeah, definitely the people that I've heard that have been bit by snakes, there's almost like a shamanic taking on that archetypal energy or the abilities. And it's funny, the same night going home from school, and I was going through a city park in Melbourne, and I got bit by a possum.
Wow.
Not bad or anything. It's just this little nibble, enough to kind of break the skin. I get home and my mum's like, because he didn't just bite me, or it came up to me on my legs like this, looked at me, and then just like a tiny nibble, but like no fear. And it was almost like there was a shamanic, I guess, energy exchange. So getting home and talking to my mum, she's like, oh my God, you need to get a tetanus. You're going to get rabies. And, at the time, I just remember, because I was studying natural medicine, I'm like, no, it'll be fine. And I think, I'm not sure if I took Ledum or some homeopathic, whatever it was at the time, for, to protect against that. But I remember, just sort of meditating on that energy of the possum, and they're very they can be vicious, but they're also like heart-based. And we have a lot of them here. I actually filmed a little baby falling out of the tree around roofline the other night, and the mum coming down, and she's like telling the baby off and get on my back. And then, they were off. And just before we finish up as well, I want to hear Phil's take on it, but I had to share with you guys the cards that I got for tonight on why we're bringing this episode to our community. So we have the card of completion, the Four of Wands. This is also sort of like a spiritual merger, often called the spiritual marriage card, Aries and Venus. And we're currently in Venus retrograde. Then we had the Fool card, which for me is about going down the rabbit hole. It's a little bit of explorative. Let's be open and let's go about the world with a little bit of a sense of naivety, which, a little bit what you were talking about with connecting with an open heart with the animals, and that like being in the moment sort of embodies that energy. Then we have the Moon card, which is all about us coming together to go on this journey where we're going to tap into deeper levels of intuition, but we're doing it as a community. So it's not just about the individual anymore. We've now elevated to where we are going to be working with telepathy more in a community sense, and whether this is heart-to-heart energy communication. But I did ask about like the timeline around this, and it's not an overnight thing. It's not like where all of a sudden it's going to be sort of bam and it's happening. We do have the night of death. So it's, as Phil was saying before, working that little bubble, and then, you're adding to it again the next day and then the next day, and sort of building upon whether it's the clairvoyance or this empathic exchange of communication, or whether you're working with light language and you're activating higher codes and things within you. But essentially, it's about making anything that's sort of hidden in the subconscious, we're bringing it up. So we're going to have, I guess, more transparency in conversations and communications, but it's going to start with our soul groups and being in a trusted space. So I just really honor everyone's time and just give a lot of love to you guys in the chat, as well as my brothers here as well. Phil, is there anything you want to say just before we finish up?
Well, you've raised such a good point there. Connecting with like-minded people, fellowship, these are good spaces to explore things, because look, when things are going to pop up about you to other people, and some people, you don't want them to know that stuff. Okay, you may have moved on, you've healed from it, you've resolved it, and all the rest of it. You can find people with not judgy people to connect with in a community sense, who are just like, yeah, look, we all know that we're here for a long game. This particular skin job here, this is just for this round. Okay, there's what are we doing to set ourselves up well for the next one? Do lots of work, leave that what is it, go bury that treasure. And so that when you come back and you get back on the spiritual horse, once you've had your sex, drugs, and rock and roll in the next incarnation, and you're like, there must be something more than this, then you have an astral experience and you meet up with a past version of yourself or whatever, and then he's like, bro, the gold's buried under this tree and it's about 20 k's away. Okay, doing the work now is really valuable. And when it comes to things like this evolutionary process, right? And I won't spend too much on this because I know we have to call it in a sec. But I wanted to say that language, the spoken language, the written language, has its limitations, and getting good at communicating, like studying word choice, and like synonyms are great. Learning about synonyms is a really good bank of choosable words to have when you're doing creativity through your writing fingers, if you will. When you're taking your own steps to evolve your ability to communicate, whether it's word choice or structuring it or becoming a storyteller, ooh, there's a good one. This bleeds over into other areas of your life horizontally, but how it aids you vertically is you're kind of meeting the higher functions halfway. You're kind of climbing the rope, if you will, by learning, you're evolving your ability to communicate. And that is analogous to things like telepathy, which is an evolved sense of data sharing, basically, and it's like we said, it's a vast theme. It's a big vista to explore. But in this current age, especially, we talked about this before about how people, AI is a big thing. People are going to start adapting themselves to talking. It's going to help them, because you can use AI to take your garbled paragraph that you've written and reform it into something that makes you go, oh yeah, okay. And then you go, okay, I can understand why it's doing it like that. Now you're learning from it. You're not just taking the answer, so to speak. But these self-induced evolutionary sort of processes this is going to just naturally unlock things. You're going to, at a very physical sense, you're going to have new neural pathways and networks start to light up and open up and da-da-da-do. But that has like I keep saying, there's these things that are going to unfold in your perceptual awareness that you had no possible perceivable understanding of. They're going to be something beyond your level of comprehension. It's a whole new resolution. Like, wow. It's like when you go lucid or astral, like your physical eyes, you're limited to, when your eyes are open in the physical, you can only see based on how good your eyes are. When you're dealing with your astral and mental and etc. eyes, you're seeing, depths, and you're seeing colors you can't see in the physical. You're seeing, resolutions like beyond 8K, and it's, and so what I'm saying here is that your internal intrinsic capability to communicate and be a storyteller and to be a playful creator with the intent of encouraging others, inspiring others, and helping to keep people uplifted and upbeat, this will work in your favor. And so I would encourage anyone who's curious. I'm doing it this year and I'm loving it. I'm getting it all. It's like writing, learning how to express yourself in the written word and also with your spoken ability, like these live streams. Brother Greg, you're in on it now. Woohoo, man. When you're in front of a crowd, like when you're in the studio recording a song, you may record that part 30, 40, 50 times. When you're live, the pressure's on. And when the pressure's on, you'll rise to the occasion and you'll surprise yourself. So challenging your ways with creative expression, whether it's writing, speaking, whatever, this is what I'm personally receiving as being an inspirational direction. And I just want to encourage this in others because it helps uplift people's ability to communicate and express themselves. So thank you so much.
Wise words. And I just want to say thank you to you both for the show tonight. It's always so much fun and I love hearing the stories and sharing with you guys. And I just want to say thank you to our Soul Tribe. And if you guys want to find out any more information on courses or on booking sessions, do check the description box below as well. And check out any events that are also upcoming for the three of us. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
See you.